Hi, this is Joel again, and today we're looking at Adobe Color and introducing color rules to students. And then we're going to jump over to Adobe Illustrator and look at how to create a swatch based on the colors that the students have chosen to present to the class. So right now I have signed into Adobe Color CC, which is at color.adobe.com. I've signed in with an account, but you don't have to. And what you see here is a color picker, and you see the 5 colors that have been selected here with the color pickers, nice and big for you to look at. You'll notice over here in the middle, the white triangle is called the base color, and that is also matched with this middle circle here, same color. And as I click and drag around the color picker, that base color changes, and all the other pickers go along with it. And you can see that this is part of what's called the analogous rule, which is when you have 2 colors on either side of the base color of equal distance. So I'm just moving it around, and you can see the colors at the bottom change with it. And then just stopping there for a moment, I can switch to all these other color rules and see what they look like. So this is the analogous rule. So these are colors that match very well, which could be used for a project or a logo or a piece of art. Switching to monochromatic, we're looking at the same color with different shades. Here, you can see the color pickers are there. Triad shows you colors that have been selected a third of the way each way through the color picker. So the base color here is the orange, then a third of the way is the blue, and a third of the way is this sort of lime green, and the third of the way again now is this this burnt orange, which is sort of over here, and then another blue over here. So that's the triad. Complementary are 2 complementary but opposite colors in the spectrum. So here's my base color, and as I move it around, we can see what all the different opposite colors are. So this also might be good for like this especially might be good for an Italian theme, this red and green sort of theme here. Compound is a very complicated one that honestly I don't understand, but the color rule is kept as you keep on clicking and dragging it across. Shades is very similar to monochromatic, same color but with different shades. And as you move it around, you can see the different ones there. And you can also do custom as well, and by custom you can just sort of pick out your own colors, and you can say, okay, oh, I just zoomed it in, but you can just say, okay, I'm just going to go with that and see how that looks. No, I might make that one here, and I might put this one over here, and put this one over here. I mean, this is creating your own rule. And I always say to the kids, this is the only class where you're allowed to break the rules, but you need to know what the rules are before you break them. I'm going to switch over to analogous though, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to choose a color that I like, maybe this sort of bluey color here, this light blue color here, and it's analogous, so I've got the 2 colors either side. Now, we need to take this color theme into Illustrator. Now, the problem is, my students, because they're under 13, don't have their own Adobe account. If they did, like I do, they would be able to save this color theme, they would be able to choose a library to save it in, for example, graphic design library, and then when they jump over to Illustrator, it would already be there waiting for them to use in their project. I can't do that. They don't have their own account. So what I've asked them to do is choose a color theme that they like I have here, and then just write down the RGB values for each one, just on a piece of paper. Now, I'm just going to go down here a little bit. They could do the hex value as well, but I think that, the hex value is just a sort of code for each one. I think the RGB is better because the kids can see that it's this much, for example, this much red, this much green, this much blue that mix together to make this color. There is a little thing that you can twirl down and you can choose, other different kinds of color options, but RGB I think is the easiest one to explain to the kids. So that's what I would do. So we were going to write these down, and then we're going to jump over to Illustrator, and we're going to have a look at the one that I have created. So now what I've done is I've jumped into Illustrator, and I've got this file that I've already prepared, and I've saved this into all the students' folders. And all it is 5 squares here, each square with no fill and with a black stroke. I've got color theme, names, and color rule written in text, which they're going to write over. And the idea is basically that they fill in each square that corresponds to the the rule that they've done. And as I said, they've written down the RGB values for each one. So let's jump back into Illustrator, and I'm just going to select the first square here. And there are a few ways to do the fill. For me, I'm just going to double click on here, this fill, and make sure that this fill is selected, not the stroke. And that happens a lot with the kids. They'll double click on this and they will put in all their values and wonder why it doesn't turn the color they want to. And that's because what they've done is they've changed the color of the stroke, not the fill. So we need to click on this white square with a red line through it, which tells us there is no fill. It's not white, it's clear, there are no fill. And I'll just double click on that to bring up the color picker. Now the color picker is used to choose whatever colors that you want, or you can type in the values exactly how you want them. So for me, my first one was 13 red, 118 green, and 255 blue. And I'll just press OK. And now it's filled to that color, which as you see, corresponds nicely to this color here, exactly the same. Okay, next one. Just click on the square. I find it easier just to click on the stroke, even though we're doing the fill, just to make sure that the square is properly selected. Double click again. My next values I'm going to put in here. And just as a little tip, pressing the tab key to go to each field makes it a lot easier. Okay. Next one, double click on the fill. This one is no red, 245 green, 255 blue. Gives me that very light blue. That was my base color there. Click on this one, double click on the fill. Next values. Whoops, that's not right. Let's try it again. Pressed enter too quickly. 12 is right, 232 and 179. And my last one, just click on the box, double click on the fill, change the RGB. This one is 13, 255 and 128. There we go. And that color theme corresponds exactly to what I did in Adobe Color, and it's exactly the same. Now I tell the students, give it a name. Look at all these colors and think of what you might call this particular swatch. So I'm going to just highlight that with my text tool, and I'm just going to type over it, and I'm just going to call it Ocean Breeze. And here I'll put my name, but obviously the students will put in their own names. And the color rule, this is what I want them to do, because I've told them that when they're looking at Adobe Color, to try, once you've chosen your base color, go through all the rules, find the swatch that you like. Now I've stuck with the analogous rule, so that's what I'm going to write. So I'll go back to Illustrator and write analogous. I spelled that right. And there we go, all done. So there's my color swatch. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Export, and Export As. And I want to just export this as a JPEG, which is exactly what I want to do. I'm going to call it Ocean Breeze. And export that. All of these are fine. I'll just keep all these settings the way they're at. So that's it. It's actually fairly simple activity. It's a really good introduction actually to Adobe Illustrator to learn about strokes and fills and how we can fill in different shapes. So that's a nice thing to sort of go into what we're going to be doing next, at least with the grade 3-4s, when we start drawing robots out of shapes, and then how to do fills and things like that later. So that's how we introduce color theory to younger students and how we get them to create their own color themes or their own swatches to present to the class. Thanks for listening.